Taco Tuesday, and I could go for a taco.
You're listening to the Voice of Texas, AM 700 KSEV Tomball, and AM 1540 KGBC Galveston.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. There are conflicting messages coming from the U.S. and Iran about talks to end the military conflict. White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
President Trump says Iran wants to make a deal and that U.S. envoys have been holding talks with a respected Iranian leader.
We have major points of agreement. I would say almost all points of agreement.
But Iran denied talks had been held. Iran's parliament speaker said no negotiations have taken place and that fake news is being used to manipulate the financial and oil markets. Greg Clugston, Washington.
There's a new deal to halt 2 offshore wind projects at a hefty price.
The Trump administration will pay $1 billion to a French company to walk away from 2 U.S. offshore wind leases. Total Energies has agreed to what's essentially a refund of its leases for projects off the coast of North Carolina and New York, and will invest the money instead in fossil fuel projects. Before Christmas, the Trump administration tried to halt offshore wind construction, citing national security concerns, but federal judges overturned those orders. Environmental groups denounced the New Deal as an alternate way to block wind projects. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
The Supreme Court is taking up a case from Mississippi over whether states can count late-arriving mail ballots. The outcome of the case being argued Monday could affect voters in 14 states and the District of Columbia, which have grace periods for ballots cast by mail. An additional 15 states that have more forgiving deadlines for ballots from military and overseas voters also could be impacted. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 631 points, the Nasdaq rose 299, the S&P advanced 74. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Sight and Sound Films presents
Benjamin Franklin,
Reverend Whitfield, A Match Made in Heaven,
or just a deal made in a print shop.
2 voices.
My friends, do you want to be free?
1 idea.
The Constitution needs to speak to the heart of these people.
A new nation.
You are the lightning bolt, George. I am just the lightning rod. And who is the source, Ben?
A Great Awakening. In theaters this Easter. agreatawakening.com for details. Rated PG-13.
In 2020, President Trump made trade fair again with the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement. USMCA supports more than $60 billion in exports and 13 million jobs, helping American farming and manufacturing thrive. It is the strongest trade partnership in the world. President Trump can keep the wins coming and keep America first by renewing USMCA with targeted adjustments. Learn more at agforusmca.com. That's agforusmca.com.
A Texas-based citizen journalist sued officials over her arrest in 2017. Correspondent Marcela Sanchez reports on the Supreme Court's decision in the case.
The Supreme Court has rejected the appeal of journalist Priscila Villarreal, who says she was wrongly arrested in 2017. The justices left in place a divided federal appeals court ruling. It found Villarreal, known online as La Gordiloca, could not sue police officers and other officials over her arrest. The citizen journalist had sought and obtained non-public information from a police officer and published it on Facebook. Her arrest affidavit says she wanted the information to gain followers. Justice Sonia Sotomayor dissented, writing, quote, "It should be obvious that this arrest violated the First Amendment." Marcela Sanchez, Washington.
News and analysis at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Keith Peters. Israel's used...
Hi, this is Michael Miller. Join me this weekend for the Backyard Bay radio program, now at our new time, Saturday mornings at 9 a.m., right here on AM 700 KSEV, The Voice.
You know, where we go in life matters, and what we do matters, and we know that taking the wrong road won't produce the best outcomes. Hi, I'm Kathy with Baker Mortgage, and we want you to take the right path when it comes to your mortgage. You know, we live in a world of information overload, but always consider the source. And these are not generally going to be from your big bank or a random offer that comes across your screen. Remember, you're always going to get a better deal on one that you go looking for than one that comes looking for you. You need to deal with somebody who gives a you-know-what, whether or not you're happy in the end. At Baker Mortgage, we do it right. We haven't been around for 68 years because we're lucky. We don't sell CDs, insurance, or anything else. We just provide a great mortgage experience. Isn't that what you're looking for? Call us at Baker Mortgage. I promise you'll be glad you did. We're at 281-313-MOVE or go directly to bakermortgage.com.
Equal housing lender, license number 263213.
This program is brought to you in part by Ability Tree Experts. Ability Tree Experts, Houston's leading tree care professionals.
Call 281-441-4179.
A breast cancer diagnosis can turn your world upside down. But your Houston Methodist team assures you they'll use the latest cancer research and technologies, collaborating to treat and remove the tumor and reconstruct your breasts, restoring symmetry, sensation, and your sense of self. That's the difference between practicing medicine and leading it for you. Houston Methodist, leading medicine.
Where should I begin?
Can we talk about this?
Say, what are you trying to say?
Beyond the usual controversial talk.
Blah, 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 on and on and on.
Over there.
1, 2, cha-cha-cha. 1, 2, cha-cha-cha.
Prepare yourself for Craig.
Okay.
Preparing a mighty new spectacle here.
Articulate, stimulating, hit you right in the... there you go.
We start becoming a team right now.
This is the Craig Collins Show.
Lord Jesus, oh God, no.
Start talking. Talk fast.
No problem. This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Now your host.
He's a good man.
Craig.
That's right. It is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas, baby. And I guess the voice of Houston, Texas, to some extent, since this is where we are based. I pray to God you're not at the Houston airport right now. A lot of viral discussion about how terrible it is to fly out of our airport right now. I think it's 4.5 hours, according to the internet, as far as the wait goes from when you show up to when you're flying anywhere. This isn't just international flights. Now you got to show up a little earlier for those. This is if you're, I think, even flying to Dallas. You got to be there for, you could drive to Dallas in the amount of time it would take you to wait to board a flight to then fly to Dallas, which is weird. And I'm sure it's terrible there, too. Democrats have caused this. You know this. I know this. We all know this. At least I think anyone that's not a brainwashed Democrat or a useful idiot knows it. And yet it's so odd that they're happy about it, because you would think that this is exactly the kind of thing. And if media were obsessed about this, if mainstream media attacked this the way they did when it was a Republican shutdown, or at least what they'll call a Republican shutdown of any kind, it would be a more valuable topic in our society beyond, I think, just us, the people who are talking about it, like you and me. And I imagine a lot of this audience is having this conversation. But nonetheless, and I fixed my hair on the live stream. Nonetheless, and my wife just cut it this weekend, which was awesome. It looks fun. But anyway, let me get back to the stuff for most people who are just listening on the radio and not watching on radio. Craig C. on Twitter or at our Facebook and YouTube pages, or excuse me, our YouTube and our Rumble pages for KSEV Radio. I live stream to that every day, Monday through Thursday. And then on Friday, I switch over to my Facebook page at Radio Craig C to live stream there as well. So if you want to watch, you want to see the new haircut, you can pipe in that way. But again, just to talk about it, if this were the kind of thing that media could blame on Republicans, they would be like night and day, just talking about it all the time, constantly. Just every conversation would go back to, they'd have 6 people live at the airport right now telling you how terrible and awful it is. Every program, everywhere throughout the country would be doing this. But since Republicans, are not actually at fault, since Democrats are, and since Democrats control a whole lot of their media, their legacy media, it's not getting discussed. And it's terrible for you. It's terrible for me that we're not talking about this more, because that's the only way they fix it. Democrats want things to go poorly. They want to then somehow try to pretend as though it's Republicans' fault, even though this is easily theirs. And then when that all works, if it does, they eventually say the only way to fix this is to defund ICE, which makes no sense whatsoever. And by the way, I do think President Trump was right in asking ICE, that is still getting paid, ICE agents throughout the country, to show up and help work as TSA, more or less. And, of course, that went viral and became a whole thing, too, about how ICE agents are now arresting people at airports, which is insane as far as a response goes. I have some Trump audio and some things I want to play in just a little bit, but I just want to candidly say that to open the show, that this should be a heavier topic, talked about more places, especially today, because of how viral our specific airport is. I think I saw 4.5 hours was the typical wait at a certain point in the middle afternoon into the probably even going on right now for Houston. And if you do want to call us and you want to jump in and say that you're at the airport, you've been waiting for 7,000 hours, and it doesn't seem like you're going anywhere, feel free. I'll go ahead and take somebody's live report on the air, a listener call on this topic, so you can do that. Other things going on that I thought were important. I had a big debate with myself, and then that sounded bad. I had a big debate with myself, that is true, though, about how I would want to talk about a topic that I think a lot of you are thinking about and talking about yourselves, and it's gas prices and how terrible they are and that they're not exactly going down as quickly as we want. Yes, oil seems to have dipped. That doesn't mean that gas prices immediately change the way you think they should if oil prices dip. But this is the kind of thing that obviously most of us don't like. We want gas prices to be as cheap as possible. That will always be a thing that Americans will want. And luckily, in places like Texas, and when President Trump is in office, by and large, it's something that you actually get. You get access to it. I've been talking to friends of mine in Illinois, where I used to live, about how terrible prices are there compared to here. No matter what they are, they're always cheaper in Texas because we don't do the terrible things that places like Illinois do to add additional taxes and fees on everything, including your gas. But I'm obviously not happy to pay more money at the pump. And so I was thinking about this. This is the debate I was having with myself. Let's see if you're having it too, or some version of it. I was saying, if gas prices have to go up, if I'm in the scenario in which I currently live, which is I have no control and prices are going in a certain direction, what would I pick as the acceptable cause for gas prices to rise? If it were Biden, who was in office, and yes, this is absolutely a political position I'm taking on this topic, his war, and I will call it that, even though it wasn't actually a conflict, was on oil and gas. He announced it a bunch of times. He's like, I'm taking them on. I'm fighting them. I'm greening everything up. I remember people that I knew that worked in solar energy were making really good money. They're like, hey, all these government subsidies are incredible. All the ways they're just throwing money at us and pretending as though the demand for this is skyrocketing when it wasn't. And everybody else was doing bad. And you and I were doing bad. And the price of gas was atrocious. And Biden, I think several times, made excuses for what was going on. Now, there must be some liberal, left-leaning, I think crazy people out there who think that's an acceptable reason to have gas prices skyrocket. The government war on fossil fuels, the government war on trying to turn everyone into green energy people. And I say specifically the government war because talk about a dumb group of people to trust, even if you think there's a reality or if it's not I don't care. I hate getting into the argument about if global warming and stuff is real. By and large, I do not necessarily think that's true, but I think some of it is true, but it doesn't matter because the worst people to solve it is the government regardless. You know that, and I know that, and this is always a conversation I get in with people. But I was thinking, like, is that a good reason for gas prices to go up? And, of course, my answer is no. What's the opposite? President Trump is right now essentially fighting terrorism. And you can be like, that's ridiculous. How dare, well, maybe not this audience, but somebody is going to be out there saying it's crazy to call the fight against Iran a fight against terrorism. But as you've heard on many, many shows on this station and others, Iran is the #1 funder of terrorism throughout the world. They hand our money when idiots like a former president just give them pallets of cash, and they use those pallets of cash to send off to the other terrorist over here, over there, to cause havoc and mayhem throughout the world. They also absolutely hate us. So if my gas prices have to go up, am I happier, even though I'm not happy that they're up in general, am I happier if we're fighting a place like Iran and not oil and gas in general? Absolutely I am. Absolutely. I can tell you that is something that seems like a more worthwhile situation to be involved in, a more worthwhile reason for me to have pain when I fill up my gas tank than the opposite. And I just couldn't get over how many people, because as I was talking about this with myself, how many people on the left would say that that's essentially, trying to always be on the same side of an argument no matter what, being so political, so one-sided that if your team is doing it, you're happy about it. If the other team is doing it, you're mad, essentially being insanely biased. And the reason that that's not remotely true, in my opinion, that this isn't bias at all, is because I started the argument or the thought experiment with, I don't want my gas prices to go up, but if they have to, if there's a scenario where I think this is the cost of doing business for whatever it is that the business is that we're doing, I am okay with the idea being that business, that we're fighting a force, fighting a country in some way, shape, or form that so many presidents on both sides of the aisle have said for a long time now, we really need to be fighting these people. We really need to not be ignoring these people. This seems like it'll be bad for us if we don't do anything about this and about the objectives that they have in Iran to develop nuclear weapons and harm us with them. That's something we don't want to have happen, to say it very frankly, very simplistically, very basically. And so it's just insane. Like, it's just an insane discussion, in my opinion. And then actually, I'm going to pivot to another one, and then we'll close with something local. And then I got a guest coming up that's jumping on the show in a little bit from Barrett Media, who wrote a great article about the MAGA Civil War. And this is specifically the media fighting, the people, the pundits. I don't think that everyday voters of President Trump or conservatives are actually all arguing and fighting each other. I think the media morons at the top are, well, some of them aren't morons. Some of them are. The media people who consider themselves to be too important and don't necessarily remember that they're serving an audience, not serving themselves. Some of those individuals are fighting with each other, and I thought Garrett is his name, did a great job with an article on Barrett Media, so I wanted to have him on. That's going to be in a little bit. But I wanted to mention President Trump's tweet about Robert Mueller. And the thing about Trump and saying that he's glad someone is dead, here's what's important to me. And I have, like, twofold. The first thing I thought of is that's not the kind of thing I'd want to do. Just as a human being, raised the way I was, I'm Catholic. I wouldn't necessarily want to celebrate someone's death. But to echo something that Chris X said on his show and others have said, there's an avenue, a human avenue for me, where I can understand how much Trump hated Mueller and why Trump would feel and say what he feels and says. And what I really hate about this discussion is comparing it to the death of Charlie Kirk. And I'll tell you exactly why. Charlie Kirk's death, shot by an insane, crazy, ridiculous person, a horrible person, was about what Charlie Kirk thought. And all the people who were celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk didn't know him, never interacted with him. Charlie Kirk never did anything to harm these people directly. They just didn't like the things he thought and believed. So it's almost like a Kevin Bacon degrees of separation, where the people celebrating the death of someone had such a lack of proximity to the person. They were so far removed from the individual that they hated apparently so much, they were happy to see him die. That is disgusting to me. That's evil to me. I would never celebrate the death of someone at all in general. I said that a second ago. But even more so, like, celebrate the death of someone I don't know, has no connection to me, not someone who ever harmed me in any way, shape, or form or tried to harm me. There's no reason. Now, when you take the Trump example into consideration, he has a lot of personal reasons to feel the way he does about someone. And I'll tell you one last thing about this, and I imagine a decent amount of this audience doesn't need to hear this. At a certain point in life, President Trump is not a young man. The reality of death becomes apparent. People die that you know, your friends, your family. I remember my grandfather describing it as most of his friends were dying. And so I think you just sort of simplistically start saying stuff like that. And so I do think the seriousness of people passing away changes. And I think at this point, when you're a President Trump and you're looking at someone who's died, you say to yourself, well, this is how I felt about this person. And it doesn't necessarily change because the reality of death is different at my stage in life than it is for people at other stages in life. And so I really think a lot of the people who are wildly upset by what Trump said are mostly young people who don't experience a whole lot of loss of life at all and don't accept the reality of it in general. Although I think there's a lot of people upset. And again, I think that it's so ridiculously different to compare it to Charlie Kirk and the separation that existed and the people that were celebrating a murderer shooting someone in the neck and a viral video showing that. It was gross and disgusting. And this is not the same. Even if people want to use that as the whataboutism to try to attack Trump, to say, I can't believe he said this. This is exactly the same as leftists celebrating the murder of a young person that happened to believe things that the killer and a lot of the people celebrating didn't believe, which is just ridiculous. All right, we're going to take a break. After the break, we will have Garrett Searight on. He is a writer and a person that does a lot of stuff for Barrett Media. He wrote a great article about why the MAGA fight, why the MAGA infighting is actually really all Rush Limbaugh's fault. Rush Limbaugh passed away several years ago. I think he's right in what he says and how he makes the argument. It's uniquely interesting, essentially, without taking too much of the thunder away from it. For anyone that's head just turned sideways, like, what are you talking about? Rush was a dominant force in media that would have quieted a lot of this. We don't have somebody like him right now. There's no one that can jump in and sort of own the opinion. But Garrett will get into more details on it. I thought it was a great article. Figured I had to have him on. A quick break, a lot more. The Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the Voice of Texas. More after this.
Hi, I'm Tommy Mello with Garage Door Doctors. My mom recently moved into a new home with a builder-grade garage door. Noisy, flimsy, and not built to last, so we're fixing that. Mom, you're my hero. When I was growing up, she worked 3 jobs just to save our house.
And helped you build this company.
Now I'm giving her a beautiful new garage door that's built to last. The garage is 40% of your home's curb appeal. When it looks good and it works great.
Life is good. Thanks, Tommy.
From repairs to upgrades, call Garage Door Doctor today.
Plumbing emergencies never happen at a convenient time. Usually they happen on the weekends, holidays, or while you're away on vacation. I'm Richard Sod, president of Nick's Plumbing. When you find yourself facing a plumbing emergency, call the licensed and experienced professionals at Nick's Plumbing and Sewer Services. Nick's Plumbing has been Houston's first choice for all your plumbing needs since 1979. Our experts can take your most difficult plumbing issues and fix them fast, fix them right, and usually for less than you'd expect. Nick's Plumbing and Sewer Services is the right choice for any plumbing job, from a leaky faucet, whole house repipe, or a complete sewer line replacement. You can count on Nick's Plumbing to do the job right. With over 40 years in business and over 150,000 satisfied customers, Nick's wants to be your plumbing company. Nick's Plumbing offers free estimates and free second opinions. Call Nick's Plumbing and Sewer Services, 713-868-9907, or visit us on the web, nicksplumbing.com.
NPL 38548.
Call Nick's Plumbing today. We're on the way.
Rain-X wipers are the #1 wiper blades in America. That means all kinds of drivers choose Rain-X. Big drivers in small cars choose Rain-X. Small drivers in big cars choose Rain-X. Drivers with long hair and short commutes choose Rain-X. Drivers with short hair and long commutes choose Rain-X. Drivers with pets on board, babies on board, and bored babies on board choose Rain-X. Basically, drivers who love a clear view of the road all choose Rain-X wipers, the #1 wiper blades in America.
Everyone knows the BBB is the Better Business Bureau, but depending on what you need, it's the Better Plumber Bureau, the Better Auto Mechanic Bureau, the Better Accountant Bureau. That's because the BBB connects people with businesses they can trust. So think of the BBB as the better check that business out first so you don't get ripped off bureau. Be smart. Always look for the BBB seal because it's looking out for you. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
Match is back here in the Mac Z-Cliner. I'm recovering from surgery thanks in large part to this miracle chair, the Mac Z-Cliner. You can sit in it, you can recline in it, you can watch TV in it, you can eat in it, you can sleep in it. It goes to zero gravity position. The Mac Z-Cliner helped me recover. It also has heat and massage, a place to charge your cell phone. Come out to Gallery Furniture, buy a Mac Z-Cliner before your surgery. Gallery Furniture delivers tonight, or after your surgery, Gallery Furniture delivers tonight, and you'll sit and sleep great tonight.
This is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the Voice of Texas. Thrilled to have you with us. Thrilled to bring on my guest. His name is Garrett Searight. He is the news editor for Barrett Media, and he wrote an article that, like, the headline of it itself, much less the article as a whole, immediately I was in. I was like, I have to read this one. Garrett, welcome to the show. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Craig. I appreciate you having me on.
Thrilled to have you on. So the headline to the article that you wrote, I think, on Friday is Why Rush Limbaugh is Responsible for the Current Conservative Media Civil War. I've talked about a little bit on my show, well, maybe a little bit more than a little bit, what this media civil war in general is, people on certain sides of the Iran conflict, whatever it might be, and they're all taking very personal shots at each other. Please explain to me, Garrett, and I loved your position on this, how's it Rush's fault?
Well, for 30 years or so, conservative media was whoever was on Fox News primetime and Rush Limbaugh, and that was it.
Yeah,
that was conservative media.
100% true.
And that's not. And it's because Rush was so good at this, not because he was using people's faces to climb the ladder. He just was so good at it, nobody could challenge him. And so when Rush dies, there's now this power vacuum of who's going to fill those shoes. Well, Rush was so good that I don't think there was ever going to be one person who was going to fill those shoes.
Yeah.
And so now the pie that Rush Limbaugh took half of is up for grabs. So Tucker Carlson and Mark Levin and Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro all have bites at that apple, so to speak, and they want to hold on to their slice of the pie, their bite at the apple. And so they're willing and more than willing to say whatever they have to denigrate those that disagree with them or might have a chance to take some of their slice of the pie away. And because Rush Limbaugh was so good and never, anointed an heir apparent,
yes,
it left a spot to where everybody has to fight to get what they can. And it's gotten really, really personal over the course of the last couple of months.
Dude, I'll tell you this first and foremost. When I read it, I'm like, he's right. The first thing I kept thinking is like, yeah, if Rush Limbaugh is still around, whatever side Rush Limbaugh is on of some of these discussion points becomes the mainstream conservative opinion, and the other side goes away. I want to ask you, though, I want to kind of nuance it just a tad. Is it two things? Is it the loss of having no Rush Limbaugh in conservative media, and also the way in which media is way beyond just your television and your radio now? Because I do think some of these people in Tucker, who I know people who know him, I'm not going to say I know him myself, and I think that they would all say he's a good human, even though there's some things he's been doing that people think are extreme. I think there might be a good heart in some of those, in the motives behind some of those things. I can't speak for him. I don't know all of it. But I will say that because of the platforms they're on, there's a need to be extreme to gain the eyeballs, the attention, the views that you might have been getting if you were on a more mainstream version of media in the past, which obviously Rush dominated radio. Is it a twofold thing in your opinion, or if Rush were around, doesn't matter?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, because I think you're right when you say whatever Rush Limbaugh's opinion on the topic would have been, that would have been everybody else, for the most part, probably would have fallen in line, because you would have been viewed as, kind of the lunatic fringe if you were to take the opposite side of whatever Rush Limbaugh took. But I do think it's an interesting point, because, yes, to create impact and create viewership, listenership on podcasts, on social media, on YouTube, you do have to, like, the only thing in the middle of the road is dead animals.
Yeah.
You have to take a strong stance on a side, whether it be right, left, whatever. You have to be the most radical, the most extreme to get the most attention, because we do now live online, at least, in an attention economy. You have to generate attention for yourself. So I do think it is twofold. That one, if Rush Limbaugh were still around and had strong opinions on any of the topics that these folks are infighting about,
sure,
I don't think that the Civil War would be happening. And then at the same time, some of those folks are, by nature of the platforms that they're on, they need to have those extreme opinions and views to generate attention for themselves.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to get at with the comments I made about Tucker Carlson being who friends and family of mine that know him personally say this is a good human, and whatever people thought of him for many, many years before some of the more controversial, I don't know what you want to call them, things he said on his show, it does feel like you're trying to feed a different beast, a different animal. And because of that, you might take a swing here or, while not endorsing something, maybe interview someone that might get you more eyeballs. And this is the other way I wanted to ask you about this, Garrett. And Barrett Media is an organization that writes a whole lot about television, radio, podcasting. You guys are, I think, a go-to industry voice in a lot of what's happening. And obviously, you probably just saw what happened at CBS Radio, and you guys wrote about that. But I just wonder if, as you look at all these different ways that people are landing on multiple platforms and everywhere now, part of what is screamed out to you is, by tomorrow, they're probably going to have a different opinion. They're going to forget about it. They're going to move on, because the game is just eyeballs, and the eyeballs can hate you the same way they hated Rush at times, some of his listeners, Howard Stern. As long as they're there, you monetize them. It doesn't matter if they agree or disagree with you.
Yeah, and that's not a new phenomenon by any real stretch. I can remember, my dad was a factory worker, a union factory worker when I was a kid, and he used to watch the O'Reilly Factor every night. And I got to be about 25 years old and was like, wait a second, my dad's a Democrat.
Yeah.
So why was he watching the O'Reilly? Oh, wait, no, he hated Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah.
And so he was watching this because he wanted to, he was hate watching this. He wasn't watching it because he enjoyed it. And so, yes, but that is a byproduct of the attention economy, is whether I get people who agree with me or despise me, I still get credit for the view. I still get the ability to monetize somebody, and the more that you can get them to interact with you, the more, if you can get somebody to comment on your stuff that tells you you're a moron, all that does is benefit you in the long run.
What?
Is that a great way to operate? No, probably not.
Yeah,
but it is. That's the byproduct of the platforms that everybody's on.
Well, yeah, and honestly, what I would be saying is, I imagine at some point, I don't know when, and you can probably help me decide, but we're both going to get it wrong. It's going to be earlier than either of us think. In broadcasting, your opinion truly was your own all the time. Everybody who was on every platform, they were just either telling you, a down-the-middle thing or giving you an honest opinion. More and more, I think, the social media world we live in, it monetizes being disingenuous. I don't even have to believe this thing remotely that I'm saying. If I see the money, Candace Owens, to me, who I don't know and have not heard good things about as a person, is living in that world of, I see dollar bills and I'm going to chase them regardless of how terrible it seems I'm behaving as a human being toward another human. This is my opinion. It doesn't have to be yours. And I just think the world we live in now has caused a deeper desire to go that road. Before, in the past, I think it might have been more accidental that you had so many hate viewers compared to how many people I think might have in a hate audience now. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think it is one of those situations where it's like, don't hate the player, hate the game.
Sure.
Because that's just the way that the game is set up. Yeah. But I always kind of hate the player because you do have to have some integrity, some character to not say that, like, I agree with you that I think Candace Owens says a lot of things that I don't know that she believes, because if she does, I think that she maybe should be in an insane asylum, because the idea that the Egyptian, French, and Greek and Turkey governments all conspired to assassinate Charlie Kirk rather than it just was a loony guy on top of a building at a college campus feels like that's a lot of dots to connect that I don't know is necessarily true.
Right.
And so, but you have to say outrageous things, or I guess maybe you don't have to, but it sure is more lucrative to say outrageous things that draw bigger attention and draw bigger audiences, because, and I think we're probably guilty of this at Barrett Media, where if Candace Owens says something about another media member or has a crazy conspiracy theory that comes up that people react to, we end up writing about that because it is a topic of discussion in media circles that somebody either disagrees with Candace Owens or she said something else about somebody or what have you. Well, and so we play into that as well, where it'll generate more attention if she says something more outlandish. And it's not just Candace Owens, by the way. There's a long list of folks who are, I think, guilty of this or involved in stuff like this. That they understand that the more outrageous I can be, the more unreasonable, the more illogical I can be.
Sure.
The more attention I'm going to attract. And so, yes, 100% there is, the term is rage baiting. If I can get you to, if I can generate rage out of you, you're much more likely to engage. you're much more likely to watch, and that benefits independent creators because the platforms have been democratized, which I think is great. You have the ability to be on social media, on YouTube, create your own podcast. That barrier to entry has never been lower.
Yes.
The downside of that is people who maybe shouldn't have that access in those platforms have access in those platforms.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you, and thank you for your take. I wanted to loop it all back, though, and how I think this is all still about Rush Limbaugh, because the one thing I would say about Rush, and I listen to him on and off. I'm actually 40 years old, so I think that in part of my radio listening life, he wasn't necessarily at the height of what he was at before. He was certainly always the biggest name in radio, but I listened toward the tail end of his career, is what I should say. Authenticity is something that he definitely had in spades. Rush seemed to believe the same things all the time, no matter what, no matter who was in charge, no matter how popular those opinions were. And that seems to be so far gone. And so many of these rage baiters want to pretend as though they're credible based on the size of their audience without explaining to you that their design is to gain a whole lot of people who think that they're anything other than credible.
Well, yeah, and I think that's, we talked about the attention economy. On the flip side of that, the audience's attention is as short as it's ever been. You can say something on one day and then the next day have the exact opposite opinion. And unless you're going to go back and find that clip on a podcast or find it on YouTube, or you're going to remember what somebody said on the radio, verbatim what their thought process was, it's real easy for them to flip-flop and say, oh, I didn't say that. I actually took the opposite stance. I told you from the beginning that XYZ was incorrect, and they went and did it, and I told you this is how it was going to be, even if they said XYZ was the greatest thing that had ever possibly happened. Because the attention span is so short, because our memories, we have gotten into the news cycle of, today's news cycle of, there's the crash at LaGuardia. By the end of the week, you might have forgotten that there was a plane crash that killed 2 people at LaGuardia airports involving a airline pilots and a fire truck, because we're designed to then move on to the next thing. There are other people who are designed to move on to the next thing and try to create outrage, and I don't think that Rush Limbaugh operated in that.
No.
Would he have potentially, in a situation where if he was on YouTube or on a podcast? I don't think so, because I think that the principles and the issues matter to him, and that's the byproduct of that type of media that he was known for and understood inherently.
Yeah, well, and I would say that if he were baiting the other side, it was with a humor component that was evident to the entirety of the audience.
Entertainment.
Right. Even the side of the audience that hated it, they should have easily understood this parody song, this whatever it is obviously designed to be a joke, even if he agrees with it. Anyway. But I do think that that's one of the things that makes a place, this is me sucking up, but also going back to something you said a second ago about Barrett might fall victim to paying attention to things more often than they should. I think this is what makes places like your place important, is I do want to read about what's going on in the world of the weird media world in which we live now, not just because I do radio, but because I do think all of these different avenues allow people to convince others that they're influential, that their opinion matters, and then essentially everybody thinks it. And so I like the analysis of, even though these people are over here, we rank this person as, uniquely influential. We also understand some of the crazy things they're saying. I think that's important, that you're covering all of that, not just, the basics of some of these stories.
Yeah, and we try to be fair and try to be balanced, and I don't generally find a whole lot of enjoyment of, Megyn Kelly took shots at Mark Levin's manhood, literally.
That literally happened. I know.
Yeah, I don't wake up in the morning and okay, what can I find about people using the word micro in a male organ to fling mud at one another? But I do think that it is important sometimes to know that, hey, this is going on.
Yes.
Whether that's a good or bad thing is probably up for your interpretation, but to know that it's happening, I do think is important sometimes.
Yeah. One last thing, barrettmedia.com is the website. Garrett Searight is the news director. He's on with me, the news editor. I know it's in the news on your site and a lot of other places about Spotify layoffs. Joe Pags, who follows me, talked a lot about CBS layoffs, radio layoffs on Friday. Anything you want to say about the media landscape and the losing of jobs that seems to be a pretty prevalent thing right now?
Yeah, I think that there's sometimes, if there's a criticism of conservative media sometimes that I think celebrates things like this, that celebrate, hey, CBS News, the perception is there's a liberal bias there.
Sure.
And it's the same thing with, I kind of tied the two together, that when Stephen Colbert's late night show was announced that it was going away, people kind of championed, like, yes, this is awesome. And my response to that is always like, hey, 23 million people a day listen to CBS News Radio, and they said that it's not profitable. We can't figure out how to make money on it. That is not a good thing. That's not a good thing for media. If the argument, or a good thing for radio really in particular, is if somebody who has an audience of 23 million people a day says, I can't find a way to make money at this, I don't think that should be shouted and hooped and hollered like, yes, perfect, this is awesome. And so I always kind of like, hey, it's not so fun when the rabbit's got the gun, right?
Yes.
That if you're looking back someday and going, man, I wish I could have made more money at this, or I don't understand why things didn't go my way, or my station shut down, or whatever. I think it's when this is the main news story of radio, probably for 2026. This will probably be one of the biggest radio stories of the year, is that a outlet that has 23 million daily viewers couldn't make money. I don't know how that is a positive for other companies, other creators, hosts, etc., because if that's how difficult it's going to be, I don't think that should be championed, regardless of the politics, regardless of if you think that somebody's got a political bias or whatever. The idea that somebody that has an outlet, a publication, a company that has that big of an audience can't make money at it because advertisers don't think that there's money, they can get a return on their investment by buying radio ads. I think that's a really scary and dangerous spot to be in, to champion something like that. So that would be my overarching, hey, it might be fun to say, yes, this is great, I want changes at CBS News. But the business side of that is that doesn't bode really well for the long-term future of a medium that I love, I'm sure you love, I'm sure your listeners love. I love radio.
Me too.
But the idea of 20 million daily listeners can't make money at it is pretty scary to me.
No, I know. I'll echo what you just said, because I know a lot of our listeners actually probably feel exactly how you just said. People feel like, yeah, go away if you're going to be that liberal and that one-sided. The bad thing from an industry standpoint is it's not like a conservative version of CBS Radio is replacing it tomorrow. There's no replacement thing. There's a bunch of people, whether they deserve jobs or not, in your opinion, not me and you, but the people listening, these people are now all out of work, and one more entity that seemed to demonstrate the viability of the radio platform itself is in the dustbin, which we don't want to see too many, of our versions of Sears clothes across society. Even if you wanted to improve them, cheering the lack of the existence of it is it's got its double-edged sword. I definitely agree with you, man. I'm thrilled to have you on, dude. This was a great conversation. A lot of different roads we went. Tell people how they can read about you, where they can find all your stuff.
Yeah, just barrettmedia.com, BARRETT media.com. We cover news, we cover sports, music, radio, the media business. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, hop on, read us, and I'm more than open to feedback. My emails, you can find it at the bottom of the page of something I've written. But I appreciate you giving me some of your time here, Craig.
Sure, no problem. Thank you very much, Garrett. That is Garrett Searight. He is at Barrett Media. And I just loved the title of the article he wrote, that this is all Rush's fault. Someone who passed away several years ago and is widely admired by myself and a whole lot of people, I think even Garrett, but a whole lot of people in media. But we apparently can blame him because his lack of ownership over the creation of, a position on a lot of these topics. And I think very often, I'll say this about Rush before I take a break, people would say he was already saying out loud what I thought. I heard that all the time from people that also listen to him, is I already think this, Rush is just saying it. There's no powerful voice giving the opinion of what might be the majority of people on the Iran thing, on anything else. Most data says most conservatives are happy still. They're not upset with Trump at all. But that, and I think Garrett teased that when he said that Rush's opinion would probably be all of this is fine, which I imagine is what he would actually say. But there's no one powerful enough echoing that thought that is backing down the crazies that exist now all over the internet. All right, quick break. A lot coming up. It's the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC,
the voice of Texas.
The leaders.
Senator Ted Cruz.
Thank you, Chris. It's always great to be with you.
Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker.
Hey, thanks for having us on. I appreciate it very much.
The newsmakers.
Folks like Peter Schweitzer.
Hey, Chris, it's great to be on with you.
Ann Coulter.
Great to be here, Chris. Thank you.
And the day's top stories with spot-on analysis.
Their first concern is not for the security and safety of the people of this country. Their first concern is protecting their left-wing behinds.
The Chris Salcedo Show on The Voice of Texas.
Matches back here in the Mac Z-Cliner. I'm recovering from surgery thanks in large part to this miracle chair, the Mac Z-Cliner. You can sit in it, you can recline in it, you can watch TV in it, you can eat in it, you can sleep in it. It goes to zero gravity position. The Mac Z-Cliner helped me recover. It also has heat and massage, a place to charge your cell phone. Come out to Gallery Furniture, buy a Mac Z-Cliner before your surgery. Gallery Furniture delivers tonight, or after your surgery, Gallery Furniture delivers tonight, and you'll sit and sleep great tonight.
If you have roof problems, you can sure see them when it rains. This is Deb Tejada from Tejas Roofing. If you see a leak, call me immediately, 281-251-0304. I'll send over the Tejas Roof Repair truck.
That truck has everything our experienced crew needs to fix your roof, right then and there.
The Tejas Roofing crew has been working together fixing leaky roofs for 15 years.
It's not a pretty truck, but it has everything we need to get the job done. I kind of like the way it looks.
Most roofing repairs cost less than $500. Why? Because we find the cause of the leak and repair that leak. We won't try to sell you services you don't need.
And we'll fix it right away because everything we need is in our truck.
Don't put off fixing a leaky roof. Call me at Tejas Roofing and I'll send over the truck. 281-251-0304. When you think of roofing repairs or a new roof, think Tejas Roofing, your Houston roofing company. 281-251-0304. That's Tejas Roofing, 281-251-0304.
If you owe back taxes, listen carefully to rule number 1. Never go up against the IRS alone. They're cracking down, freezing bank accounts, garnishing paychecks, canceling passports. Even your home or business could be at risk. But here's what they don't tell you. The IRS has powerful tax relief programs that could save you thousands if you qualify. That's why smart people call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. Nobody knows these programs like the experts at Optima. Their team of tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $2 billion in tax debt for people just like you. The IRS is not stopping, so don't wait, and don't take them on alone. For tax help you need, for tax help you can trust, call Optima today for a free consultation.
Call 800-780-3599. 800-780-3599. 800-780-3599.
Optima Tax Relief. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
This is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas. One last topic I did want to get to. Rusty is on the phone, so I am going to bring him on in just a second. 281-558-KSEV if you want to jump on the phone, too. 281-558-KSEV or 5738. I was going to mention that Senator Paul Bettencourt is still one of the only people calling for Lena Hidalgo to resign. There are a couple others that have been doing it, but mostly led by Senator Bettencourt. It is sort of insane to me that we're sitting here right now, March 23rd, at least a week from when Lena Hidalgo tried to demand herself into a certain place within the rodeo. She was already at the show. She just wanted the shoot seat. She wanted the seat that got her right up to the front of a show, and she was already given it multiple times by the rodeo for other concerts. So she was given $9,000 worth of free stuff, and she wanted more. And then when she didn't get more, she went crazy. And she settled and seemed to do a lot of things that tried to insinuate that the rodeo people were racist and sexist and horrible. As somebody who, as part of the media, got to cover the rodeo, did not get any access to any shoot seats whatsoever, was in the press box for free every single night, which was pretty cool. I thought it was insane that she was demanding so many additional things, and how dare you not give me the stuff that I want because I'm an important person and a politically relevant person here at Houston, and if you don't give it to me, I'm going to attack you. Like, all that just shows that her character is atrocious, and she should resign. She should step away. She's not running for re-election. She's someone who should disappear into the ether as quickly as possible, but it's just insane that it's not happening because it's the world in which we live. If you're on one side of the aisle, you love the terrible people on that side. If you're on the other side, you love the horrible people on your side. It doesn't matter because the
the stupidity of the totality of that story and the behavior of the individual made me think that what Senator Betancourt was calling for, obviously, of course, part of the Amigos here every Friday, was simply a rational thing. It wasn't even a politically one-sided thing. It was, how can you embarrass yourself this much and not go away? The CEO of that company that was at the Coldplay concert had to quit his job because he was standing up at the top of the show with a person that wasn't his wife. Why doesn't Lena Hidalgo have to quit her job when she acts and does ridiculous things at the rodeo? I don't have an answer. I'm just throwing out the question. Let's get to Rusty. Rusty gave me a compliment about the interview I just did with Barrett Media. Rusty, what do you want to say?
Oh, that was great. I've got a list. The interview was just really great. I didn't know it was going to last that long. But you know what? I'm a AM radio fan. Okay,
Yes.
let me just put it that way.
Me too.
So, I mean, it's like it's on its way down. They tried to cut it out, tried to keep it from being put into new cars.
Let me say it this way, as a guy
radio
that's on the
band.
radio right now. It's not doing as well as it used to do, Rusty. I will say, let's continue. But it's not doing as great as it did in the past.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we don't want to dwell on that. But it was a fight for the time slot that he had.
Yes.
You know, the 12 to 2 in New York.
12 to 3, yeah.
You wonder, would he fall in line to support this war? You know, I think we would know a long time ago whether he wanted them to go over there and go to war. You know,
he actually. It's funny that you mentioned that. It's funny. It's just real quick. It's funny that you mentioned that because actually, there's several different pieces of audio of Rush Limbaugh saying that we should go fight Iran. So I think the point you were about to make is your assumption that doesn't exist, but actually it does. Because I went in and looked for that. I wanted to see what Rush's position probably would have been on this, and he was one of a few people that often called for military intervention, not boots on the ground, but military intervention against Iran.
Well, that's
and how
what I was going to say. He would be telling the conservatives how to feel. He would tell them what to think. And it would be the conservative mass out there, the AM radio fans, the ones that heard it at work, they would wait to hear what Rush Limbaugh told them to think, is my opinion.
Well, but here, let me ask you what you mean by that, because what I'm hearing you say is I'm a blank slate, and Rush could tell me anything, and then I'll walk out into the street and I'll do whatever Rush said. But you know that's not true.
You fall in line.
You know that's not true, right? You know that people are not, in fact, he's not convincing people that are Democratic-leaning to feel a certain way about some topics. He's giving an opinion, a very powerful one, a very
I realize
loud
that's
one.
why his dad listens to the O'Reilly Factor.
Yeah,
you know
that was my guest's father. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of us like to get both sides.
Yeah, my guest's father watched the O'Reilly Factor. But again,
That's
you can
right.
like to get both sides all you want. I think there's a difference between having an honest discussion about people whose opinions were shaped by Rush Limbaugh and pretending as though people were sheep who, whatever you said, whatever you did, I did anything. Because obviously
that's a little dig.
Yeah,
that's a little dig.
Right. That obviously that's not an accurate description of human beings.
But Rush Limbaugh, always said there's got to be a little ring of truth in everything.
There does.
Or
Yes.
They'll completely ignore you.
Yes, but it sounded like what you were trying to say is that Rush convinced conservatives of what to think, as if they might not.
He would actually be making that statement.
Right.
He would tell everybody, he says, well, wait. He would brag about that. He was braggadocious.
Sure, yeah, I get it. Thank you very much for the call, Rusty. I would say, again, the difference between someone who's influential and genuine and someone who's trying to be influential and not genuine. A lot of what I see, and I think a lot of what Garrett Searight, who's a writer for Barrett Media, and I were talking about in that interview, are people in today's society who have no genuine thoughts on some of the things that they're most known for. People like Candace Owens. I don't think that she genuinely believes, and this is me giving her a human benefit of the doubt that maybe at this point, based on behavior, she doesn't deserve to be given. But I don't think she genuinely believes that Erica Kirk killed her husband, that Erica Kirk was responsible for the death of Charlie Kirk, either in any sort of direct way, which I don't think Candace has ever said, or indirect way. But yet she's seen the value in pretending as though she feels that way and diving as deep into that rabbit hole as she can. And there's a lot of people who do that now. There's a lot of people incentivized by the stratosphere in which we currently live, the weird version of media where there's a little bit over here, a little bit over there, a little bit everywhere, and I want as many eyeballs as I can on my stuff, that in order for me to gain that, I need to be as extreme as possible. I played the audio a few days ago of Andrew Schultz saying in an interview, Andrew Schultz, a known podcaster, comedian, someone who interviewed Trump, endorsed Trump, and now regrets it for reasons that he can get into if you want to go find it. But nonetheless, Andrew Schultz said that we have to be more extreme to keep garnering the attention that's beyond whatever our current silo is. I have a certain amount of people that will listen to KSEV radio, not because of me, not because of anything I'm saying, but it's your behavior. It's what you've done for a long time. Hopefully you stay and listen to this show, but it's essentially a benefit of being on a platform, whatever platform you're on, but that's a limited audience. And if you want to grow your audience, especially on the internet, in digital, and all those places that it's hardest to attract new eyeballs, you have to say and do things that are crazy, and you have to say and do them when maybe most of the people who come along for the new ride don't actually agree with you. One of the things Candace Owens likes to brag about on her show is the size of her current audience compared to what it was a few months ago. And I think the misunderstanding often there is that these people all agree with you, because that's the assumption you make, right? If I tell you I have a 6 million person audience, and when I fill in on the Dana show or anything else like that, actually she's got, I think it's 8.5 million people that listen to her radio show. And I'll be on it. I shouldn't really promote it because it's not on this station. So I actually should recommend that you listen to it on the internet. The Dana show is found a lot of places. I'll be on it 3 days in the next week or so. I'm on it the tail end of next week and the beginning of the week after it, filling in for Dana, hosting her nationally syndicated radio show. And it's cool to be given a platform that giant and that big. But if I really wanted to have me be known from one of those fill-in shifts on her show, which I wouldn't do this, it would be mean to her. And she's a very kind person to me, letting me fill in on that show. I should do and say something crazy, because once I'm on that platform, whatever the platform is, again, the craziest thing you say and do, I'll let you go viral, and then maybe it builds you your own audience. That is what I think a lot of the people on the internet are doing. And I'll say this about Rusty, who's now called into the show twice, and I don't pay enough attention to the phones. I miss calls. I need to do a better job of that. I promise I'm going to try to do a better job at that. But you can hear it, like the back end of the confirmation bias he think is happening anytime he says anything that's so overwhelmingly negative about the side of the aisle that he hates, about conservatives. It's just so funny to hear people do that to me. It's so amusing to sit next to somebody and be like, I had somebody send me a message. Let me do it this way, because we're almost out of time. The show is about to be over. But I had someone send me a message saying, have you heard that Trump is now arresting people at the airport? And I looked at it and I'm like, huh? That's the first thing I thought. Arresting who? Arresting what kinds of people? At Radio Craig C, by the way. If you want to send me a message, you don't have to agree with me to try to fire off whatever you want to send me, as this person seemed to obviously be trying to attack Trump in what they were saying. But they had seen a headline that ICE was going to be sent to the airport to help with getting people through TSA that weren't going to be able to do it. And it was so funny that had morphed into ICE is arresting everybody at the airport. And I just love that people look for these ways for them to be right. And to go back to, or I guess to kind of close the idea, the influence of someone like a Rush Limbaugh, I do think that when you were listening to him speak, when you were listening to him give his opinion on a topic, you were more open-minded than you are in today's society. Not you and me, but a lot of the people who are just so sure of their opinion, especially the people who listen to the side that's not theirs. They're so sure of their opinion, they wait for that moment where they think they're being told, I'm right and they're wrong, they're terrible and I'm great, and that's all they focus on. And I think it's quite a big shame in our society that so much of it is designed that way now, because I think it even further helps the people who are willing to be the craziest and hurts the people who are not willing to be as insane just for the sake of insanity. All right, that's it. That's the whole show. I'm out of here. Thrilled to be with you as always. KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas. It's the Craig Collins Show. Talk to you tomorrow, everybody.
You're listening to the Voice of Texas, AM 700 KSEV Tomball,